Welcome to Heart of Terra Stories. Please subscribe to my channel. Your one click means the world to me. The High Arbiter's blade hummed, a sliver of concentrated violet light hovering a mere inch from the Terran's throat. Elias Vance didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He just stared at Empress Vora with eyes that remained terrifyingly quiet, a psychic void where a soul should be. Vora felt the physical weight of that silence pressing against her own mental shroud. In that moment, surrounded by the gold-veined marble of the obsidian sanctum, the sheer heresy of a choice, freely made, felt more dangerous than any rebellion. She stepped forward, her silk robes whispering against the floor, and placed her hand directly over the burning edge of Kale's weapon. The silence of the leaden ship had been the first warning. 3 days earlier, the frigate had drifted into the zenith fringe like a ghost. It was a blocky, ugly thing, wrapped in thick layers of lead and sensor-dampening composites that defied the hegemony's usual methods of internal scans. When Guard Captain Thorne led the boarding party, he expected the usual compliance. The hegemony did not conquer through fire. They conquered through the neural binders, the subtle weave of psychic frequencies that turned every mind into a predictable, loyal node of the Empress's will. But Thorne had returned to the neon spires looking shaken. His armor was unscratched, yet his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He reported that the neural binders had simply slid off. The Terran crew possessed a mental architecture he couldn't describe. It wasn't that they were strong, it was that they were closed. They were fortresses with no doors. Vora watched the playback from the interrogation chamber. Commander Elias Vance sat in a chair designed for anatomical discomfort, his expression one of mild, weary boredom. He wasn't resisting the binders, he was ignoring them. She decided then to see him herself. In fact, she had never spoken to someone whose thoughts she couldn't feel. To Vora, the world was a constant noise of other people's desires and fears, a sea of echoes she had navigated since birth. Ruling through echo, meeting through voice, it was an ancient law. To speak aloud was considered a primitive, almost shameful necessity. Yet as she entered the containment suite, she found herself clearing her throat. The sound was harsh, cracking the artificial stillness of the room. Vance looked up. His skin was pale from weeks in the dark, and his flight suit was stained with grease and salt. He looked small compared to the towering architecture of the spires. But when his gaze locked onto hers, Vora felt a jolt of genuine electricity. It wasn't a psychic connection. It was the simple, terrifying realization that he was looking at her, not her title or her power. "You're the one in charge," he said. His voice was gravelly, lacking the melodic cadence of her people. Or at least, you're the one everyone is afraid to think about. Vora moved closer, drawn by the strange vacuum of his presence. "My captain says you are broken, that your minds are dead." Vance offered a dry, thin smile. "We just like our privacy, Empress. Down on Earth, we don't let people into our heads without an invitation. It's a messy place in there. You wouldn't like the clutter." But Vora found herself wanting to see the clutter. She reached out, her fingers hovering near his temple, searching for the slightest flicker of the binder's grip. There was nothing, just the warmth of his skin and the steady, rhythmic thrum of a heart that refused to sync with her own. The violet hum of the High Arbiter's blade intensified, reflecting in the dark, steady pupils of the Terran commander. Vora didn't move her hand. The heat of the energy field began to blister the air between her palm and the steel, but she remained anchored. She was no longer listening for the echo of Kale's mind. She was watching the pulse in Elias's neck. It was fast, a frantic drumming of a heart that knew it was seconds from stopping, yet he remained motionless. He was waiting for her to decide. "Step back, Kale," Vora said. Her voice wasn't a psychic broadcast. It was a physical vibration, raw and unpracticed. The High Arbiter's face contorted, his telepathic signature radiating a jagged golden fury that bruised the minds of every guard in the sanctum. "He is a vacancy, Excellence, a hole in the weave. If they cannot be bound, they are a plague." We cannot rule what we cannot inhabit. Then, perhaps, Vora replied, her fingers finally closing around the hilt of Kale's weapon, forcing the tip toward the floor. We have reached the limit of ruling. The betrayal was instantaneous. Kale didn't use the blade. He used the collective weight of the neural binders. He reached into the minds of the elite guard, yanking on their loyalty like a puppeteer snapping strings. 6 soldiers lunged, their eyes glazed with the violet tint of forced obedience. Vora didn't think. She acted on a sudden, sharp instinct, a physical pull toward the man who owned his own soul. She grabbed Elias by the shoulder, pulling him behind the heavy, lead-lined throne. The marble shattered where he had stood a heartbeat before. "The ship," Elias hissed, his hand gripping her forearm. His skin was hot, his touch a shocking contrast to the cool, distant projections of her kin. "If you can drop the dampening field on the spire, my crew can broadcast. We have a pulse signal. It's not a weapon, it's a scrambler. It'll break his hold on them." "You would help me?" Vora asked. She looked at him, searching for a hidden motive. But there was only the blunt, honest reality of a man who didn't want to die. "I'd rather deal with a queen who talks," Elias said, "than a ghost who commands." Vora closed her eyes, not to reach out, but to shut everything else out. She found the central node of the obsidian sanctum within her own mind, the golden tether that linked her to every binder in the city. Usually she used it to listen. Now she used it to scream. She flooded the network with the image of the lead-lined ship, the silence of the Terrans, and the terrifying, beautiful realization that she was alone in her own head. The feedback loop tore through the room. High Arbiter Kale shrieked, clutching his temples as the psychic architecture of the hegemony groaned under the weight of her rejection. In that moment of fractured focus, Elias moved. He didn't have a psychic gift, but he had momentum. He tackled Kale, the two of them crashing into the gold-veined pillars. Vora sprinted to the command dais, her fingers flying over the holographic interfaces. With a final, decisive strike, she severed the neural binders. The silence that followed was absolute. Across the neon spires, millions of minds suddenly blinked. The constant hum of shared thought vanished, replaced by the terrifying, exhilarating weight of individual consciousness. In the sanctum, the guards dropped their weapons, looking at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. Vora walked toward Elias. He was leaning against a pillar, breathing hard, a smear of blood on his lip. He looked tired, messy, and entirely himself. "It's gone," she whispered. "The chain is broken." "It's going to be a long night," Elias said, looking out at the city where the lights were flickering as people woke up to their own thoughts. "They're going to be scared." Vora looked at him, then at the vast, dark horizon of the zenith fringe. "Then we will talk to them, not as echoes, but as voices." She reached out, and this time, when their hands met, there was no power involved, only the simple, honest heat of two people meeting in the quiet.